Hello, family. So, this video is really about the completion cycle that we've been in since September, and I'm calling it the rise of the Phoenix. So, what we've noticed in September is a series of breakdowns, and we're having to face our biggest challenges, right? Face our deepest fears, and really introspect and look at ourselves in a new way, because we've had to take accountability for everything that is showing up in our lives as part of our creation, part of our spiritual progression, right? So, this is the transformation from feeling like a victim into feeling like a creator, right? So, a potential to step into our power in a way that can't be manipulated externally anymore. So, in this process, though, in the breaking down of everything that wasn't working for us, that's really reflecting the breakdown of our old identity that we upheld in the old grid system. We've been through a series of timeline jumps. And during this 3-day window that I mentioned on my Instagram, we've had these activations take place that have like lifted us up into higher levels. So what many of you are starting to feel now, or most likely will feel, is a pressure release, because the pressure was building and building and building. And the reason I call it the rise of the Phoenix is because basically we broke down everything that we were not and destroyed our old, outdated, inverted grid identity. And in the process, we've been rebuilding and regrowing, and now we're ready to come out of that and emerge as a new identity in the new grid system without all the old limitations and toxic experiences. This is also why we've been purging immense amounts of trauma. And you can see, all over the place, people are focused on healing trauma and making it okay to talk about now. Because a lot of times you start to talk about your trauma and people are like, oh, you're just being negative, or I don't want to hear about that, or I just want you to be happy, not sad. But really embracing the sadness, embracing the despair, embracing all of the emotions and recognizing they're there as messengers and they're telling you something, right? They're telling you where there's a blockage in your body. And that's not just your physical body, because your physical body will reflect the emotional blockages in your emotional body, right? And your mental blockages will show up in the emotional body. So this body, mind, spirit complex can't be separated out, although we can talk about them as if they're separate so we can understand the different levels of ourself. They're really not separate though, okay? And what we're shifting into with the unity consciousness is the recognition that we're not separate at all from each other even, right? So when you look into the eyes of another, whether they're thriving or struggling, you can see that's me too, right? So you can see that is source looking back at source, witnessing source. It's all source energy. And we tend to vilify different people in our lives that we don't like what they're doing, but really they're reflecting something deeper within ourselves. And it doesn't mean that we do exactly what they do, right? So when I say the reflection, what I mean is if you are around somebody who is narcissistic, right? Let's just throw that out there. It doesn't mean that you are narcissistic, but what they will reflect is where you don't have healthy boundaries, or where you are not putting yourself first to make sure that you're okay and then able to care for others, right? So that's what I mean by reflecting. They're reflecting our deepest fears. We all are doing this for each other, reflecting our deepest fears, our core wounds, our core programs. And I recently made a video that I shared on Locals that talks about the core programming from while our mother was pregnant with us. So that's where a lot of us are finding our challenges and facing our challenges because we don't understand why we have that energy. Why am I like this? Why do I have these programs? I don't understand why I operate this way or why I act the way I do. Well, when our mother was pregnant with us, you can watch the video, so I'm not going to go into it, but that's where we developed our core foundation. That's it. And then that's the main filter that we see the world through. And it's not even our filter. It's one that we accepted through mimicking our mother because we, as a fetus, felt no separation. Now that we're separate, or we have our own life that we're living, really, we're not separate, but the perception of separation at this level exists. So we're having our own lives and running our mother's programs unless we shift them, right? And I'm not going to go into that anymore because the video is available. So moving forward now, we're shifting into a new year, and be prepared for everything in your life to shift and anything that reflects the old, right? When we ask for a new life or something greater, we have to be willing to trade in the old, worn out aspects that prevent us. It doesn't mean you have to let go of everything. It just means you have to let go of the things that held you in that fixed position in that experience. And this may be beliefs, points of view. It may be grudges. It may be blame. It may be guilt or shame even, right? And so what we have is this huge softening within us, which is the rise of the Divine Mother within each of us. While we have the rise of the Divine Mother, what's become very present is the toxic masculine energies. And let me be crystal clear when I say this. When I say toxic masculine energies, I mean the toxic masculine within each of us. I absolutely in no way, shape, or form am saying that males or men are toxic. That's not at all it, okay? So there's a big misconception in this area that when people say the toxic masculine, they're talking about men. That's not it, okay? Just have to be crystal clear because I don't want people to put words in my mouth around what I am not saying. Okay, so what I am saying is that we have this opportunity to heal that wounded masculine within each of us by bringing in this Divine Mother energy that's also within each of us. We have the Divine Mother and the Divine Father within. We are polarized beings within ourselves. We have the magnetic and the electric, and I teach this in my Inner Source class if you'd like to go deeper into understanding how we operate. But when we have both of those energies and one is out of balance or one is missing, then that creates a tremendous imbalance in our expression and how we identify ourselves in the world. So this is what's now coming into harmony, and we're bringing ourselves into a space where we can actually put ourselves first and not feel guilty. Okay, so a lot of us on the ascension path are service to others oriented, but what that's come with is a huge amount of self-sacrifice. And that's what this activation cycle that started in September and is completing now is helping us understand. I can't help others if I am worn down, burnt out, and have nothing to offer. So I have to take care of myself, and it's not wrong for me to take care of myself, right? So as this Divine Mother energy comes in, when we did not have that, let's talk about that for a moment. Many of us in the collective served as the surrogate Divine Mother. So that means we cared for others, often in relationships. And this doesn't matter, male or female, doesn't matter. Okay, let's not get caught up in that because men or women can be serving in this capacity, carrying the Divine Mother energy for others. And that is the willingness to nurture others around you, to meet their needs, to give them what they need, and the encouragement to keep going, right? So now that this is complete, this is the cycle completion that we're in, right? Now we can focus on ourselves again and observe others going through these activations and breakdowns and breakthroughs as well, but not have to feel responsible for doing it for them or rescuing them or saving them or making sure they're okay, right? And I am not saying don't care for others, because in unity consciousness, we do care for others because we recognize that is another version of me and I am part of Source. So we are all part of Source, and it's great to care for others. But it's no longer okay to sacrifice yourself for others. Now, with this activation completing, what we are noticing, we are having a huge activation in our heart, and it's connecting us into higher dimensional energies. So all the dimensions are stacked on top of each other, and they all exist in the same location at all times. However, we do not always have access or awareness of each of these dimensions. Stepping into multidimensional consciousness is so far beyond 5D. Now, I love the 5D teachings because they are like a bridge into multidimensionality, right? But we have 4D as well, which is the astral or etheric level of things, right? So we have 4D that we're transiting into, and 5D, and 6 and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and and actually way beyond that. But we right now as a collective are activating the awareness and ability to access 12th dimensional energies. Now, what does this look like for people? This looks like different stations of your identity coming online for you within yourself. So you suddenly have access to higher levels of awareness that you didn't have before. With this comes a lot of introspection and awareness of where you've been out of alignment with your spirit. And that can be very painful. Okay, that's the breakdowns. And then with that needs to come the self-forgiveness and forgiveness to others. And that alleviates the blame. And when there's no more blame and you work on the guilt and you understand that you were limited in what you could access as far as awareness and that you are always doing your best. There's nothing to feel guilt for. Guilt is a temporary messenger that lets you know that you're out of alignment. Once you recognize that, you let go of the guilt and bring yourself into alignment. And so this is what we're doing as a collective. We're starting to bring ourselves into our center and rise up into this higher dimensional awareness. And it's within that awareness that we start to shift into unity consciousness, and we do not get to bring our old selves into the unity grid. The unity grid is moving so fast and will manifest what you're carrying within you, which is why we've been dropping the baggage of all of this trauma from these past experiences that were created within inverted grid systems. Many of them were set up for us by scripter beings, or beings that give you your role in life that isn't really your role. But when you're mind controlled, or you're controlled by different entities or beings that are unseen that you've called on, that would lead you into living a false timeline. Those are the false light timelines, or the AI generated timelines that we are releasing ourselves from now, but we are also having to heal from them because the experiences that our spirit experienced in them are very real. And our bodies hold the memory of that, which is why many of us chose to be born into bodies and lineages that we could clear at this time. So if you had a very challenging childhood and you always felt like the black sheep, or you identify with being an indigo or a starseed, those of you that do this, we chose extremely toxic lineages, which means we had a ton of trauma to unpack, and some didn't make it through. Some are still trying to unpack it, and some have unpacked it and have found peace. But here's the beautiful thing. We're clearing not just for ourselves. When we heal ourselves, we heal our lineage. And that's why we chose the most traumatized lineages. And many of us are walk-ins into these lineages, right? So a walk-in, if you're not familiar with that term, is a spirit that will take over the karmic history, the generational trauma, and everything that that person, the different spirit before them, created in this lifetime as well, and bring healing to it and bring completion to it when the time is right, and that time is now. And so we stepped into these, some of us stepped into these bodies that we had so much depression when we came into them because the pain of all the trauma. So when a spirit comes into, let's say, possession of a body, it takes on the trauma that's in the cells. And that's what's been accumulated through every single generation that is born. It carries the trauma of the parents, right? And this is why I ask you to be gentle with yourself and be gentle with others. So, um, while this Divine Mother is awakening within us, the access to the depth of the pain is also awakening within us. And now I'm telling you, this pain, when you tap into the collective energies, it is so painful that you may feel like you don't want to be here anymore, or that there's no getting out of it, that that's just your life now, and it's not, okay? This is something to transit through. It's a gateway. And the only way out is through it. And we've tried every coping mechanism in the book. We've tried all different ways of avoiding this pain. But the only way to really get through it is to stop and face it and say, what are you? Where'd you come from? What's your message? What do you want me to know? What can I do with you? And it may take a while. So it's not like it's just, okay, I'm going to feel the pain and I've got 5 minutes. Let's see, I'll set the timer and feel the pain, right? It's not like that. It may take weeks. It may be the dark night of the soul or the 50th dark night of the soul that you go through, depending on what your mission is here, what your spirit has lined up for you. Because some people go through one dark night of the soul and some people go through many, because every single time you go through a dark night of the soul, an old identity dies. And when an old identity dies, you feel like you want to die sometimes too. But hang in there, push through it, because whenever an old aspect of you dies, a new one is born. So you maintain this kind of constant presence. You can't destroy energy. It just changes form, right? It fits along with that. It's very challenging though. And so there's people who integrate polarity to bring neutrality within the collective templates. And for those of you that are doing that, you notice that your lives go up and down very rapidly. Okay, and you are the ones that have multiple dark nights of the soul because you are shifting the core templates of the collective to bring balance and harmony rather than extreme polarities. You're uniting the polarities and ushering in unity consciousness. Not everybody has this role. We all have a role and we all have a part to play in this. And they're all very valid parts. They don't all look the same, okay? And this is where you don't compare yourself to others, especially your ascension process. If you look at your ascension process and you think, well, these people are having those activations and I must be wrong, you're not wrong. You just have a different activation taking place at a different time. And this is all being run by our spirits. Our spirits are not going to hand us more than we can handle. Okay? And so it's really about tuning into you and what's right for you rather than looking at what's right for others. And so this is where I highly encourage you to pay attention to the teachings that always lead you back to yourself for the guidance rather than doing what somebody else says you have to do and doing this ritual or that ceremony. I recommend against that. It's up to you. Follow your inner guidance with it. But really, the key in that is your inner guidance, because your inner guidance comes from your spirit and it's not going to mislead you. Other people's guidance comes from their spirit and it's for them. Yours is for you. And we're not all doing the same thing. So when we're exploring this deep pain, recognizing that our tears, crying, sobbing, bawling, that moves energy immensely. So does yawning. It also, so if you're focusing on energy and you start yawning, you are shifting patterns within your light body. Okay. So speaking of light body, let's talk about that for a minute. When we have our light body going through activations, what that means, like a lot of people don't understand what these light code activations actually mean. It's more information in your light body template coming online so you have more awareness about your path and what's happening in your part in this collective reality, right? So everybody has these light code activations at different times in their life, but they can coincide with other people having the same activations at the same time. But I need to tell you this, these energies that come in, once they come in, they're available, but you have to be tuned to them. So the people who are tuned to them receive them first, and then they integrate that into the collective consciousness. But because those light code activations have become available to one, they are available to all. But you have to get yourself in the right energetic space to receive them. So when you receive these activations, It looks very different for different people, although the symptoms can be somewhat the same. When you um, when you try to move forward, when it's time to break something down, it's really not time to build something at that moment, okay? So if you try building before you clear the space to build, you will have a really hard time. Now let's talk about moving into the new year here. This completion cycle that started in September really culminated here on the solstice, okay? And because those energies became um, completed for many. This means that the people who went through that phase closed it up, but it opened up that phase for so many other people to access now. So this is where the things that we've gone through, now the general population who has for the most part been asleep is going to start activating. So watching them go through the stuff, but prioritizing your well-being and not self-sacrificing is really huge. Moving into the new year, we're going to start building a new reality. And this is what many people call the new earth reality. And don't get fooled by new age deception about their new earth reality that they're saying is just 5D, because it's not just 5D, it's multi-dimensional. Remember what I said, we have access to 12th dimensional energies as a collective. If people are just talking about 5D, then they're very limited in either their awareness or they haven't expanded into the multidimensional expression yet. And that's okay, it's not wrong. But if you have 12 dimensions available, why would you just choose 5? Okay, so anyways, that's what I have for you right now, my friends. I will be back very soon with another video for you. And I'm wishing you the very best into this new year. Thanks for being here with me.